Would you deny Jesus? Is this even a question that we should have the arrogance to ask? Like what is this something I would do? Um, Peter said he wouldn't deny Jesus, and he did. So is the lesson in that just don't say you'll deny Jesus, or and just be just kind of like, well, you never know what you'll do in that case, or can we make this stance that no, I won't deny him? But this is what we're going to kind of unpack and explore today in the Then and Now Bible study. So here comes that intro music. Here comes that intro music. All right, here comes that intro music. Let's. There we go. I am just struggling with my buttons today. But anyhow, hopefully, I could edit all that out, right? But hopefully that's like kind of some of the charm of this channel of like, you just, all right. Anyhow, thank y'all so much. Again, thank y'all for supporting kind of a small YouTube channel. And so with that, being a smaller channel, likes and subscribes are so super, super important. And every single one of them, I appreciate so much. But again, I respect your time and respect that you're here to let's get into the Bible. So let's jump to scripture and let's see what's going on. So when we came to this particular passage in the lesson, I'd skipped over and said we're going to come back to it because I do want to do his Jesus predicting his denial, Peter's denial, along with the actual, denial or denial, because they work together. And I highlight stuff so I can find it. And I realized probably the best way to find this is to not highlight it. So we're just going to jump. Let's read it. So it says, make sure my cursor's in the right spot. It says, you will, Jesus is speaking here, and he's talking to his disciples, and he says, you will fall away. Jesus told them, for it is written, I'll strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I've risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee. Peter declared, even if all fall away, I will not. Truly, I tell you, Jesus answered, today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. Peter insisted emphatically, there we go, I can read. Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the others said the same. And so Jesus tells them, you're going to fall away. And then he tells them why you're going to fall away. He said, listen, you're going to fall away. And yes, it is on you, but it is also because this is to fulfill prophecy. Like it's written, it was decided beforehand that you're going to do this. You're going to fall away. You have to fulfill scripture. I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. He said, but after I'm risen, I'll go ahead of you to Galilee. And so what's interesting here, and get over to the right place. What's interesting here is Jesus saying, listen, guys, and I don't really know, like, I don't really know if this was meant to be like Jesus telling them, like, hey, listen, y'all, I'm going to be crucified. Y'all are going to be scattered. It's not the end of the world that you do this, because it's prophecy that you do this. Just know that I'm going to go ahead of you. I'm coming back, and we'll pick back up after my resurrection. I don't know if this was so much. I definitely don't think that Jesus was trying to give them a pass for scattering, but I also think that Jesus was telling them this of like, maybe I'm conjecture, this is conjecture here. Maybe it was, hey, listen, you're going to do this. Don't beat yourself up. Just make sure we're going to pick things back up in Galilee whenever I come back. And then, we're going to move on from there. I'm coming back to life, but you will scatter, you will deny me. And I don't know. It's possible that that's like the point of this, of why Jesus is telling them this. But definitely kind of where it goes because of Peter's arrogance is Peter being arrogant. Definitely where it goes is Peter saying, no, I won't. And again, it's kind of like Jesus is telling you, you will. Prophecy is telling you, you will. You're going to do it, man. Just, hey. And so Peter even makes this claim like, no, I'll go to the cross with you. I'll go to death with you. I'll die next to you. I will not deny you. And Jesus, basically is like, no, it's been decided before the pillars of time that you are going to deny me. And even before the rooster crows 3 times or the rooster crows twice, you'll have denied me 3 times. And so now I do think that this now turns more from just a, hey, heads up, I'm going to be crucified. Y'all are going to deny me. Not the end of the world, because I'll be resurrected. We'll pick back up in Galilee. Into, all right, well, I'm, if you really want to be arrogant about this, yes, you will. This is how it's going to happen. And so now the way Mark writes this, the way Mark writes this is he has the prediction of Peter's denial, and sandwiched in between the prediction of Peter's denial and Peter's actual denial, you have the Garden of Gethsemane, where Peter can't stay awake. You have Jesus arrested, where everybody scatters. And yes, Peter is the one that cuts off the guy's ear, but it doesn't say that. Again, more cowardness from Peter and the rest of the disciples for that matter. Then you have Jesus before the Sanhedrin. What you have now is that we have this contrast from Jesus and the bravery and the courage that we see demonstrate, or the cowardice that we see from the disciples, contrasted against the bravery and the courage that we see from Jesus. So this is now Mark is playing into a contrast, and now we come into the second part of the sandwich, the other piece of bread in the sandwich, of Peter actually disowning Jesus. And so let's read this. This is verse 66. It says, while Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. You also were with that Nazarene, Jesus, she said, but he denied it. I don't know or understand what you were talking about, he said. And he went out into the entryway. When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, this fellow was one of them. And again, he denied it. After a little while, those standing near said to Peter, surely you are one of them, because you're a Galilean. He began to call down curses and swore to them, I do not know this man you're talking about. Immediately the rooster crowed a second time. Then Peter remembered the words that Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. All right, so let's unpack a couple of things that Mark is really trying to drive home for his hearers, for his readers. Peter's in the courtyard. Jesus is this is during Jesus' trial. We see the contrast of the bravery of Jesus during this time, and then we see Peter in something that I believe that Mark really kind of highlights here, is that who is accusing him, at least at first, who is accusing him at first. And it says, Peter was below in the courtyard, and one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. So likely, here we go. Yes. Likely, this servant girl, we hear servant girl, and we think of a small child, it's a little kid. And likely she wasn't a small child. Likely she was probably a young teenager. Yeah, we don't know how this young girl was. But what we do know is how Mark refers to her. And Mark refers to her in such a way that highlights her youth and also highlights like a harmlessness. He highlights the fact that she is not somebody. He is using this term young girl as a way to highlight the fact that this is not somebody that Peter should have really been too concerned about. This is not somebody that should have struck fear in Peter's heart in the way that it likely did. She's just a young girl. And so she calls him out of being one of Jesus's disciples. He denies it. He leaves the area. She follows him. She says again, you are one of them. And, no, I'm not. And then I guess she leaves or whatever, but the other people around are going, bro, yes, you are. You're a Galilean. He's from Galilee. You're from Galilee. Y'all are out here in the middle of the night. Yeah, you are. You clearly are. And at this point, any time that you catch somebody in a lie, generally what they're going to do is they're going to just get, about it. And that's basically what Peter does. They catch him in a lie. They know, or Peter knows, so he just goes and he calls down curses and I don't know this guy. I don't even know him. And so I don't even know him. That's a crazy indictment, right? I couldn't imagine in my Christian walk going, I don't even know Jesus. That's wild, but that's what he says. That's what he says. And when he says it, the rooster crows, the rooster crows, and he remembers the words of Jesus and he breaks down. He's as rightly so, very upset. Now, Mark never, especially in the original ending of Mark, definitely never is there a reconciliation between Peter and Jesus? However, I think that this is kind of part of the short ending of Mark, and the one of the things about what's up with the short ending, what's up with the abrupt ending of Mark, and I think this is part of it because Mark doesn't ever bring up the fact that Jesus and Peter were reconciled. However, everybody in the early church knows, should know, likely knows that Peter's the guy, and he's basically one of the apostles that are heading up the church. It's likely that this was written in Rome, and at this point that Peter's in Rome, he's dictating kind of this, and so this is everybody would know clearly there's reconciliation here, and so why Mark leaves us off, we'll get into that when we get to the ending, when we start covering the two different endings of Mark. But here, Peter's denied Jesus. Peter, he told him he didn't even know the guy, and he weeps bitterly. And so a couple things that I want to take out of this. So first takeaway that I definitely want us to grasp and to understand is that Mark is highlighting here how Peter denies Jesus, but we have to assume from the context that most everybody listening to this or reading this would have known that Peter has been made right with God, that Jesus forgave Peter, and that the reconciliation had taken place. Even though Mark doesn't go into exactly how that happened, the original hearers, the original readers would have put that together. And so with that, this is definitely the original meaning is that, hey, even Peter denied Jesus, and the forgiveness of Jesus is such that even amongst denying him in his lowest point, there is forgiveness and reconciliation. And I think that's definitely a applicable point for us, that regardless to what we've done, regardless to our background, regardless to how we have failed him, there's always reconciliation. There is always that chance of coming back to Jesus. You know, one of the things that I've heard before that I love so much, that is that no matter how far away from God you wander, the trip back is always one step. And praise God for that, right? And so I definitely believe that one of Mark's purposes here is to demonstrate the forgiveness and reconciliation that is available even for somebody who has denied Jesus to his face. So as far as denying Jesus, as far as the question that I kind of opened the video up with is would you deny Jesus? Should we even make that claim? I believe that it was wrong for Peter to make this claim at the time, I won't deny you, because Jesus was in the process of telling him, you will deny me. You will, in this moment, you're going to deny me because you have to, because the sheep is going to be scattered. It's a fulfillment of prophecy that must happen. However, I don't believe, later what we know from Peter is that he does suffer according to Christian legend, in true Peter fashion. He says, I'm not worthy to be executed in the same way that my Savior was. Crucify me upside down. And again, we don't know if that's true, but it sure matches Peter's modus operandi, right? Of just being just kind of a larger than life, outspoken. It's believable, even if we don't know it to be 100% true. It is definitely like one of those things. Like I could see Peter saying that. From what we know as a guy. So there is a point in Peter's life where this statement that he says, I will never deny you, there's a point where that is absolutely true, where that is a true sentiment from Peter. And so I don't think that it's necessary. So some Christians approach this and go, well, you never know how you're going to respond in that situation. If that's your thought process, I can tell you how you're going to respond. You're not going to go through with it. I do believe that I don't believe the lesson here is to not say, I wouldn't die for what I believe. The lesson is not to don't say, it's too arrogant to say that you never know how you would respond. No, you do. We as Christians need to resolve in our hearts that we would die for this, that we would go to our grave for this belief. We do need to resolve in our hearts that we would die for this. It wasn't wrong of Peter to say, I will die for you. It was wrong of Peter to say, I'll die for you in that moment, in that time, because Jesus was in the process of telling him that you will be scattered. You won't. You're not. It's not your time. This is not when it is appointed for you to die with me or die for me. This is the time that's appointed for me to go to the cross. And it was wrong for Peter in that moment to say, I will die for you. I don't believe it's wrong now. I don't believe that it's because clearly he did later. So I do think that it is something for us as Christians, even in America, even where we're not, especially in America, especially where it's not a reality that we might have to die for our faith. We need to put ourselves there. We need to think that through. We need to go, all right, if something crazy happened and whatever might be the situation. Am I ready to die for what I believe? And I do think that, especially for Christians in America, who we don't think about that, it is not on the frontlets of our minds that we need to, at some point in our life, come to a place where we go, I've thought this through, and yes, I will die for Christ. I will die for what I believe. But at the same time, don't tell me that you'll die for something that you're not living for. So like the answer also, if you won't live for it, you definitely won't die for it. Don't even kid yourself. So first off, the first step of answering that question is, am I living for it? And once you start living for it, then you can start answering the question of, will I die for it? Been studying some early church stuff. And what's interesting is throughout some of the some of the persecutions of the early church, you did have those that like Peter, denied their faith, and God, and then whenever they were like, the persecution came to an end and they wanted to come back to Christianity, how do we let them back in? And interestingly enough, this is where the penance system came in that the Catholic Church still practices today. It came out of Christians who, during extreme persecution, denied Christ, and after the persecution was over, wanted to come back into the flock. And the church leaders was like, well, we need to have something in place to know that they're serious about us. And so the penance system was created, invented. They started doing that. Not to say that it's right or wrong, just, hey, fun fact, Pastor Trey, that's where it comes from. Anyhow, also, not only were there martyrs in the early church, something called confessors. And so what a couple of the Roman empires realized was that it was actually a bad idea to martyr Christians. They started realizing that martyring Christians only made more Christians. Every time they would bring Christians into the arena and feed them to lions or set them on fire, I just martyred 10 Christians and made 100 more. They realized very quickly this was a bad strategy. And so what later Roman emperors started doing, instead of martyring Christians, is that they tried to get them to, they tortured them to try to get them to deny their faith, because a Christian that would go back on their faith, the denier, was much more detrimental to the church than a martyr. But what came out of that were confessors. And these confessors aren't necessarily martyrs, but they through torture and torment, they never backed out. They never backed down. They through the worst of tortures and torments and imprisonments, they never they never denied Christ. They never denied Jesus. And the church wanted to recognize them, and they can't recognize them as martyrs because technically they didn't die for it. But they're like, hey, that's pretty significant too. And likewise, I agree with that. And so with that, our church history, and even modern day Christians are facing persecution where this is a reality. I do believe that we need to face this. We do need to, in our heart of hearts, make a decision that I will die for this. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the reason that it was wrong for Peter in that moment was because he interrupted Jesus telling him, you will do this. And no, I won't. No. All right. So that's why I think that in that moment it was wrong. I don't think in general it was wrong. I think, Jesus is trying to tell these guys, hey, there's prophecy. Y'all got to fulfill this prophecy by denying me. It's cool. We're going to meet up in Galilee and it'll be okay. I think where Peter went wrong was kind of denying the sovereignty of God and what he had already said. That's where Peter kind of messed this up. Not to say Peter messed it up in saying, no, I won't die for you, because Peter clearly did end up dying for Jesus, just not then. So with that, would you die for him? Would you deny him? Would you die for him? I can't answer that for you. I know that I have thought through that scenario. I have thought through that scenario many times, and I reaffirm myself that yes, this is something that I will go to my grave for. I will die for this thing. I will, and I've resolved in my heart that this, and I encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to really take a real look at your commitment to Christ and go, is this something I'm willing to die for? And if it's not, I challenge you to get to that place where you are ready to lay down your life for this. It has been the call of hundreds of thousands of Christians before us, and by the ends of our lives, it may be the call of us. We just don't know. Anyhow, kind of heavy. All right, yeah, we're talking about becoming a martyr. That tends to be a little heavy, but as it should. But hope y'all are having a great week, even after all this martyr talk. All right, contemplate this, pray over it. If you enjoy this, if you get value out of this, and you believe that it can value somebody else, man, share it with somebody. And of course, like, subscribe, all the YouTube things. Love you guys. Hope y'all are having a great week. Let's see if I can do a little better with the intro music this time than I did at the beginning of the video. Hit the right button. There we go. Y'all have a great week.